My perfect wife's secret life. How a crumpled receipt blew up my marriage, revealed her narcissistic lies, and forced me to rebuild everything. A Reddit confession. Hey Reddit, throw away for obvious reasons. I'm completely shattered right now, just reeling, trying to make sense of everything that's happened. My wife, Amelia, and I have been married for 8 years, practically high school sweethearts. We met in junior year, built our whole lives together. Everyone always said we were the unbreakable pair, the ones who would grow old together, the perfect couple. I'm starting to realize how terribly wrong we all were. For the past 6 months, Amelia has changed. It wasn't a flick of a switch, more like a slow, creeping frost. She became distant, guarded. Her phone became an obsession, an extension of her hand, always hidden from my view. Any casual glance from me towards it would be met with a sharp, defensive snap. Privacy, David. Are you trying to snoop on me? Her once endless patience for me completely evaporated. Everything I did seemed to irritate her, from asking about her day to leaving a mug out. She started spending more and more nights out, citing networking events for her new job or girls' nights with people I'd never even met. Often, I'd only get a last-minute text saying she'd be late, or sometimes, not home until morning. I tried to talk about it, about feeling disconnected, about missing us. Her response was always the same, a dismissive eye roll and a sharp, icy tone. Why are you always so insecure? Some of us actually have careers, David, unlike you, who just sits around the house expecting everything. It cut deep every single time, especially when I bend over backward to make sure everything at home runs smoothly so she can focus on her demanding job. Her excuses for being late or unreachable became a repetitive, frustrating loop. My phone died. What do you want me to do? Traffic was insane, obviously. Oh, it's just a new coworker being overfriendly. It's nothing. I swallowed them, every single one, convinced myself I was being paranoid, that her new demanding job was just taking its toll and I needed to be more understanding. But last Tuesday, it all came crashing down around me. I was cleaning the living room, trying to make the house feel a bit nicer for her return from another one of her late nights, hoping to surprise her. Tucked deep into the cushions of her favorite armchair, where she sometimes shoves her purse, I found it. A crumpled receipt. It wasn't from her usual coffee shop or the grocery store. This was from the Crimson Spoon, that upscale tapas restaurant downtown we'd talked about trying for ages, but she always said was too expensive or too much of a trek. The date on the receipt? 2 weeks ago, a Monday. The very night she told me she was working late on a huge presentation, probably won't be home until morning. The receipt was clearly for dinner for two cocktails, 2 main courses, a shared dessert. And on the back, in faint but undeniably clear handwriting, amazing night. Can't wait for next time. Winky face. J. My hands started to shake. The crumpled receipt felt like a live coal burning through my fingers. My breath hitched in my throat, a cold dread seeping into every pore. Amazing night. Can't wait for next time. Winky face. J. It wasn't a coworker being overfriendly. It wasn't a girl's night. It was a date. A full-blown, intimate dinner date at a place she'd repeatedly shot down when I suggested it. And the kicker? She'd spent that night, according to her, locked in her office, toiling away for her career. The excuses, the distant behavior, the constant phone hiding, it all clicked into place with a sickening thud. The perfect picture of our marriage, the one I'd held on to so fiercely, shattered into a million sharp pieces right there on the living room floor. I felt a volcanic eruption of anger, then a profound wave of nausea. My beautiful, smart Amelia, the woman I loved more than anything, the woman I trusted implicitly. She was lying to me, casually, repeatedly, almost effortlessly. The thought spun my head, made the room tilt. I stared at that receipt for what felt like hours, trying to rationalize it, trying to find any innocent explanation. Maybe it was a business dinner where she paid, but then why Jay? And why the winking emoji? And why the blatant lie about working late? The pieces just didn't fit. They formed a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. When she finally did come home later that evening, around 1 a.m., she was unusually cheerful, almost giddy. Rough night at the office, but we nailed it, she announced, tossing her keys onto the console table with a theatrical sigh. She didn't even look at me, just headed straight to the fridge for a sparkling water. I was still holding the receipt, hidden behind my back. My voice felt rough and used. Rough night, huh? At the Crimson Spoon? Her back stiffened instantly. She slowly turned around, her face losing its cheerful mask, replaced by a stony, unreadable expression. Her eyes narrowed. What are you talking about, David? I was at work, obviously. I told you this. Her tone was dangerously calm, a clear warning. I knew this tone. It was the precursor to an explosion. Really? I asked, my voice barely a whisper, extending the receipt towards her. Because this says otherwise. Dinner for two, at a very expensive restaurant, with a little note on the back from Jay. Her eyes darted from the receipt to my face, then back again. For a split second, I saw panic flicker in them, a raw, naked fear. Then, it was gone, replaced by a withering glare. Are you out of your mind? You're going through my things? Snooping? What kind of husband does that? She snatched the receipt from my hand, tearing it into tiny pieces with surprising force. This is a fabrication. I don't know what this is. Probably some old receipt from a lunch or something I picked up. You're being ridiculous. Honestly, David, your insecurity is becoming a serious problem. It's pathetic. I work hard, and you're here, trying to accuse me of what? What exactly are you accusing me of? Her voice rose, becoming shrill, theatrical. Are you calling me a liar? A cheater? Her voice, once so dear, now grated on my nerves, shrill and accusatory. Are you calling me a liar? A cheater? She shrieked, her eyes wide, feigning shock. The fragments of the receipt fluttered around her feet like fallen autumn leaves. It was an Oscar-worthy performance, a masterclass in gaslighting. My mind raced, trying to keep up with her sudden shift from guilt to outrage. The date, Amelia, I said, my voice trembling, trying to keep it steady. It was 2 weeks ago, the night you said you were working on the big presentation and wouldn't be home. You came home at 7 a.m. Jay is not a business associate. She scoffed, a disdainful sound that cut me deeper than any scream. Oh, Jay, you're fixating on a letter now? You think I'm having an affair because of a letter on a scrap of paper I probably picked up off the street? My God, David, you really have lost it. This is pathetic. I was out with Sarah and Lisa for a quick bite after work that night. We sometimes go to new places. We paid separately, and I must have picked up some random receipt by mistake. The J could be anything. A waiter's initial, a joke from Sarah. Her explanation was so flimsy, so transparently false, it almost made me laugh in a deranged sort of way. Sarah and Lisa, her friends, I'd never once met, let alone seen. And the Crimson Spoon isn't a quick bite kind of place. It's a reservation-only, dim lights and romance kind of spot. My stomach churned with a mixture of disbelief and utter revulsion. How could she lie so effortlessly, so convincingly, straight to my face? Sarah and Lisa? I repeated, my voice hollow. The ones who don't exist? The ones I've never met in 8 years? And you had dinner with them at a restaurant you said was too expensive for us? And they paid for your 2 cocktails and a shared dessert? It sounds like an amazing girls' night, where you also got a romantic note from Jay on the back of your receipt. The sarcasm dripped from my words, a bitter poison. Her face twisted into an ugly snarl. The mask of innocence completely fell away. You know what, David? I don't need this interrogation. I'm tired. I just worked a grueling 15-hour day. And you, sitting here, picking apart some stupid receipt? It's truly disgusting. I don't owe you an explanation for every single second of my life. You're suffocating me. She spun on her heel, stalking towards the bedroom. Maybe if you spent less time spying on me and more time doing something productive with your life, you wouldn't have so much free time to invent conspiracies. The words hit me like physical blows. Suffocating me. Invent conspiracies. She was twisting it, making me the villain for daring to question her. My chest ached, a deep, hollow pain. I watched her go, too stunned, too emotionally battered to argue further. She slammed the bedroom door, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent house. I was left standing in the living room, surrounded by the remnants of her lie, the crumpled pieces of the receipt on the floor. My world, my perceived reality, had been ripped apart, and she was already asleep, or pretending to be, in our bed. The same bed we shared. It felt defiled. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. Every nerve ending felt raw, exposed. Her words, her contempt, her blatant lies, They replayed in an endless, agonizing loop in my head. I sat on the couch, staring blankly at the wall, the silence of the house amplifying the deafening roar in my ears. The initial shock had given way to a searing anger, a white-hot fury that made my hands clench into fists. How dare she? How dare she treat me with such disdain, such casual cruelty, while actively betraying everything we built? Then, the anger curdled into a profound, suffocating sadness. 8 years. Gone. Was it all a lie? Was she always this person, just better at hiding it? The thought was unbearable. I remembered countless moments, tender touches, shared laughter, whispered secrets. Were they all just part of an elaborate charade? The woman I loved, the woman I idealized, was a stranger. A cold, calculating liar. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. She made coffee, humming a little tune, completely ignoring the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. She even asked, with a sickeningly sweet voice, if I wanted eggs. My stomach roiled. I couldn't even look at her. I mumbled something about not being hungry and retreated to my makeshift office, closing the door firmly behind me. I couldn't bear to be in the same room as her, to breathe the same air. I spent the day in a fog, going through the motions of my work, but my mind was elsewhere. It was replaying every suspicious late night, every guarded phone call, every dismissive comment. The pieces fit now, perfectly, horribly. The networking events always had her coming home smelling faintly of an unfamiliar cologne. The girls' nights often involved her claiming her phone died, only for me to see it charging perfectly fine the next morning. It wasn't just this one receipt. It was a pattern, a slow, deliberate erosion of our trust, hidden behind a veil of bitchy accusations and manufactured outrage. The feeling of being utterly, completely alone was overwhelming. I had no one to talk to. Our friends were our friends, mutually shared, and I couldn't bring myself to break their perception of our perfect marriage. My family adored Amelia. My mother often called her the daughter I never had. How could I tell them? How could I dismantle everything they believed about us, about her? I felt trapped, suffocated by the secret, by the weight of her deceit. That evening, she came into my office, looking irritated. Are you going to be a moping mess all day, David? Seriously? Get over it. It was a stupid receipt. I told you what happened. Are you going to continue this pathetic silent treatment, or are you going to act like an adult? She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, tapping her foot impatiently. Her tone was devoid of any remorse, any empathy, just annoyance. It was like I was an inconvenience, a stubborn child she needed to chastise. And that's when a new, terrifying realization dawned on me. She didn't just lie to me. She didn't care that she lied to me. My pain meant nothing to her. Her indifference was a deeper cut than the betrayal itself. My pain means nothing to her, I thought, and the words echoed in my mind like a death knell for our relationship. The woman I had built a life with, who had once comforted my every tear, now stood there, impatient and annoyed that I wasn't simply getting over her blatant infidelity. It was a stark, brutal revelation. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. Her eyes, once warm and inviting, were cold, almost hostile. Her posture was defiant. There was no hint of the Amelia I knew, the Amelia I loved. This woman was a fortress of self-preservation, armed with sharp words and a complete lack of empathy. Get over it. I finally managed to croak, my voice hoarse. Amelia, you lied to me. You went on a date with another man, lied about working, and then tried to gaslight me into believing I was crazy for finding evidence. And now you expect me to just get over it? My hands clenched under the desk. I wanted to scream, to rage, but all that came out was a quiet, desperate plea for her to just see what she'd done. She scoffed again, rolling her eyes. Oh, for God's sake. A date? You're so dramatic, David. It was a casual dinner. I was bored. You're always so busy with your little projects around the house, never paying attention to me. What did you expect? For me to just sit here and wait for you to notice me? Jay is just a guy from work, no big deal. We had some food, a few drinks. It meant nothing. You're blowing this completely out of proportion. Besides, she added, her voice hardening, you're not exactly Mr. Excitement, are you? Always wanting to stay in. I need a bit of excitement in my life. The confession, albeit twisted into an accusation against me, hung in the air. I was bored. It meant nothing. You're not exactly Mr. Excitement." Each word was a tiny dagger, twisting deeper into the wound. She wasn't sorry for what she did. She was sorry I found out. And she was already laying the groundwork to blame me for her actions. My little projects around the house were my contributions to our shared life, enabling her to pursue her career. My wanting to stay in was our quiet evenings, our shared meals, our intimacy. She had painted them as dull, as reasons for her to seek solace elsewhere. "So, you're admitting you went out with him, and you lied about it," I said, my voice eerily calm, the despair settling in. She waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, all right, fine. Yes, I had dinner with him. So what? I didn't sleep with him, if that's what you're implying. It was a moment of weakness, a bit of fun. You make it sound like I murdered someone. Honestly, David, you really need to get a grip. People have lunch with colleagues all the time." The mental gymnastics she was performing were astounding. A romantic dinner at an upscale restaurant, a flirtatious note, boredom as a motive, and it was now just lunch with a colleague. And the lying Amelia? The months of lies? The gaslighting? The constant accusations that I was the problem? I pushed, wanting her to acknowledge the depth of her deceit, not just the physical act. She threw her hands up in exasperation. "Because you were the problem. You're always so needy, so clingy. I couldn't breathe. I needed space. And frankly, your constant suspicion made me feel like I had to lie to get some peace. So, in a way, it's your fault for making me feel like I couldn't be myself." That was it. The final blow. My fault. For wanting to know where my wife was. For expecting honesty. My fault for her choices. The sheer audacity, the unbridled cruelty of her words, stripped away any remaining hope I had. There was no remorse, no apology, just blame. And a fresh wave of profound, icy clarity washed over me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a fundamental rot in the core of our relationship, fueled by her selfishness and deceit. The clarity, when it arrived, was a cold, hard slap to the face. Her words, "It's your fault for making me feel like I couldn't be myself," solidified it. My fault. Not her choice to lie, not her decision to seek excitement elsewhere, not her inability to communicate. My fault. It was a complete abdication of responsibility, a masterclass in victim blaming, and it extinguished the last flicker of hope I'd unknowingly been clinging to. The Amelia I thought I knew was gone, replaced by this bitter, self-serving stranger. I stood up from my desk, my body feeling heavy, yet strangely detached. "So, you cheated, you lied, and now you're blaming me," I stated, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "You're not sorry you did it. You're just annoyed I found out and dared to react." She bristled, her eyes narrowing. "That's not what I said. I said you pushed me to it. Honestly, David, you need to hear yourself. You're being so dramatic. This isn't some movie. I just needed some space, some fun." The way she emphasized fun was like a deliberate dig, highlighting my perceived deficiencies. "Fun," I repeated, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. "With Jay at a restaurant you claimed was too expensive for us, while I was home thinking you were working, trying to make our lives better." A sudden wave of nausea hit me, a sickening realization of just how much I'd sacrificed, how much I'd tried, only for it to be thrown back in my face as boring and suffocating. "Oh, stop playing the martyr, David," she snapped, her voice rising again. "You chose to do all that. I never asked you to be some kind of domesticated puppet. I just needed someone to talk to, someone who understood me. You've become so dull." Dull. The word hung in the air, a final condemnation. After everything, I was simply dull. My efforts, my love, my loyalty, all reduced to a pathetic dullness. My vision blurred slightly, a stinging sensation behind my eyes, but I refused to let her see me cry. Not now. Not ever again. "Okay," I said, a new, steely resolve hardening my voice. "If I'm so dull, and I'm pushing you to cheat and lie, then maybe this isn't working." The words, though terrifying to utter, felt strangely liberating. They were the first genuine, unadulterated truth I'd spoken in months, maybe years, about our relationship. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape, a flicker of genuine surprise finally breaking through her defiant facade. "What are you talking about? Not working? Are you actually suggesting you're going to throw away 8 years over one stupid dinner?" Her voice wavered slightly, a crack in her armor. It wasn't fear of losing me, I realized, but fear of losing her comfortable life, her status as happily married. One stupid dinner. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. No, Amelia. 8 years. 8 years of lies, of disrespect, of gaslighting. One dinner was just the proof, the tip of the iceberg. You didn't just have dinner. You consciously and repeatedly lied to me, treated me like dirt, and then blamed me for your actions. That's not a marriage. That's the torment. A sudden, sharp pain flared in my chest, a physical manifestation of the heartbreak. My chest felt tight, my breath shallow. It was an all-consuming sadness, a grief so profound it felt like I was being hollowed out. But beneath that sadness, a tiny spark of something else ignited, self-respect. I deserved better. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and someone who actually valued me. And Amelia, this cold, conniving stranger standing before me, was not that person. The decision, though heartbreaking, was beginning to form, stark and clear, in my reeling mind. The decision, once a terrifying precipice, now felt like an unavoidable path. It was a choice born from deep pain, yes, but also from a newfound sense of self-preservation. My voice, when I spoke again, was surprisingly steady, carrying a conviction that even surprised myself. I'm not throwing away 8 years over one stupid dinner, Amelia. I'm choosing to save myself from 8 years of this. I gestured vaguely between us. From being lied to, from being disrespected, from being made to feel like I'm the problem when I'm just asking for basic honesty. Her face contorted, not into sorrow, but a furious indignation. You're being absolutely insane. You're going to destroy everything we have because of your paranoia. What about our house? Our future? Our plans? She was talking about her plans, her comfortable life, her image. My future, my well-being, seemed to be secondary, if they were considered at all. There is no us anymore, Amelia, I said, the words cutting through the air like a blade. Not really. There hasn't been for a long time. You just hit it better than I saw it. I'm tired of feeling like I'm constantly walking on eggshells, constantly doubting my own sanity, because you can't be bothered to be truthful. I can't live like this. A sudden shift. Her indignation dissolved into a petulant anger, almost a childish tantrum. Fine. If that's how you feel, then just go. Leave. See if I care. You'll regret it, David. You'll realize what you've thrown away. You'll come crawling back. She stalked out of the office, heading straight for the bedroom, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the pictures on the wall. The sound echoed through the house, a final, definitive period on a sentence I never wanted to write. I stood there for a long moment, the silence after the slam almost deafening. The ache in my chest was still there, but now, a strange sense of relief began to unfurl, a lightness I hadn't felt in months. The weight of the secret, the burden of her lies, was no longer solely mine to carry. It was out. The truth, however ugly, was finally out. I walked slowly to the bedroom door, my hand hovering over the cold metal knob. For a second, a fleeting image of our wedding day, of her radiant smile, flashed through my mind. Then, it was replaced by her bitter words from moments ago, her utter lack of remorse. I took a deep breath, letting it out slowly. No, I whispered to the closed door, more to myself than to her. I won't come crawling back. The next few days were a blur of practicalities and emotional turmoil. I started packing a bag, just essentials at first. I couldn't stay in that house, not with her. Not after everything. Every corner, every piece of furniture felt tainted. I avoided her as much as possible, communicating only in clipped, necessary sentences. She continued her charade of victimhood, occasionally bursting into tears, accusing me of abandoning her, then swinging back to venomous anger, claiming I was overreacting. There was no apology, no genuine remorse, just manipulation. I called my sister Sarah. I couldn't keep it to myself anymore. Her shock, then her quiet, furious understanding, was a lifeline. "Oh, David," she said, her voice filled with a heartbreaking compassion. "I'm so sorry. You deserve so much better." Just hearing those words, knowing someone believed me, knowing I wasn't crazy, was an immense comfort. It was the first time I cried properly, hot, bitter tears of grief for the future I had lost, for the wife I thought I had. The decision was made. I was leaving. The marriage, at least in its current form, was over. The decision to leave felt like tearing off a festering bandage, agonizingly painful, but necessary for healing. With Sarah's quiet support, I made arrangements to stay at her spare apartment for a while. The practicalities were daunting, a stark reminder of how intertwined our lives had become. Untangling 8 years felt like dissecting a complex organism, nerve by nerve, sinew by sinew. Amelia's reactions continued to swing wildly. One moment, she'd be tearfully begging me not to leave, swearing it was a mistake, that she loved me, that we could fix it. The next, she'd be spitting venom, calling me weak, pathetic, a fool who was throwing away a good life. There was no consistency, no genuine remorse, just a desperate attempt to control the narrative and keep her comfortable existence intact. Every time she veered into emotional manipulation, it solidified my resolve. This wasn't a partner trying to salvage a marriage. This was someone trying to avoid consequences. The morning I moved my first few boxes, she was standing in the living room, arms crossed, a cold fury in her eyes. "So this is it. You're actually doing this? Running away from your problems like a coward?" "No, Amelia," I said, carefully placing a box of books by the door. "I'm running towards my sanity, and away from your lies." My voice was tired, but firm. I wouldn't engage in another argument. I couldn't. I was emotionally drained. "You'll be back," she sneered. "When you realize how hard it is out there on your own. Who's going to cook for you? Who's going to clean up after you? You're useless without me." Her words, once so impactful, now felt hollow. They bounced off a newly built shield of self-worth. "I'll manage," I replied, simply, turning my back to pick up another box. Her attempts to diminish me, to make me doubt myself, were losing their power. Driving away from that house, the house we built, the house filled with memories, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My chest ached with a profound sense of loss, a grief for the dreams that had been shattered. I looked in the rearview mirror, seeing the porch light we'd installed together, the garden we'd tended. It was all still there, but we were not. The physical distance between me and the house mirrored the emotional chasm that had opened between Amelia and me. Settling into Sarah's apartment felt strange. The quiet was different, not the strained, heavy silence of our marital home, but a peaceful, empty quiet. It allowed me to think, to process, without the constant threat of confrontation or manipulation. I spent days just staring at walls, reliving moments, trying to find where it all went wrong. Was I blind? Was I too trusting? Was I truly dull? My sister, Sarah, was a godsend. She didn't push for details, didn't offer platitudes. She just listened, made me food, and let me exist in my pain. One evening, after I'd recounted yet another incident of Amelia's callousness, Sarah looked at me with clear, kind eyes. "David, you're not dull. You're kind. You're thoughtful." You loved her completely, and she took advantage of that. Her actions are about her, not about you. Her words were a balm, a gentle reassurance that slowly began to mend the raw wound of betrayal. The decision wasn't just made, it was being enacted. The resolution, though painful, was separation. Divorce would follow, I knew, once I gathered the strength for that next, even more daunting step. The first few weeks at Sarah's were a strange cocktail of emotional turmoil and unexpected freedom. The grief was a constant companion, a heavy cloak I wore, but underneath it, a fragile sense of peace began to bloom. I wasn't constantly on edge anymore, anticipating the next critical comment or the sting of another lie. The air felt cleaner, lighter. I spent countless hours trying to reconstruct the timeline, to pinpoint exactly when Amelia had truly started to detach. It wasn't a single moment. It was a gradual erosion, like a coastline slowly being eaten away by the tide. The subtle shifts in her behavior, the growing defensiveness, the sudden passion for networking, all of it, in retrospect, painted a clear picture. I realized I had been so invested in making us work, so committed to the narrative of our perfect marriage, that I'd ignored the flashing red lights, dismissed the blaring alarms. My own desire for her love had blinded me to her true intentions, or rather, her lack of them. One particularly low evening, I stumbled upon a picture on my old laptop. It was from our first year of marriage, a selfie of us grinning, arms around each other, on a hike. Her smile was genuine, her eyes full of warmth. I stared at it for a long time, tears finally falling freely, unashamedly. It wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the loss of that person, the woman in the photograph, who seemed so utterly different from the one I had just left. The realization hit me then. I was grieving not just a marriage, but a version of Amelia that probably hadn't existed for a long time, or perhaps had never truly existed in the way I perceived her. Sarah, ever the quiet observer, found me like that, laptop in hand. She didn't say much, just sat beside me, offering a comforting presence. "It's okay to mourn, David," she whispered, her hand gently resting on my shoulder. "It's a death, the death of a future you imagined." Her words resonated deeply. It was a death, and like any death, it needed to be grieved. The initial shock and anger slowly began to subside, making way for a deeper, more profound sadness. It wasn't the kind of sadness that cripples, but the kind that numbs, that makes everything feel a little muted. I started going for long walks, sometimes for hours, just letting my thoughts wander. I reflected on my own role, not in causing her to cheat, but in perhaps enabling the dynamic. I had been too accommodating, too willing to overlook her increasing coldness, too eager to believe her flimsy excuses. I had prioritized her happiness, her career, her needs, to the detriment of my own. I had lost myself a little in the process, becoming Amelia's husband rather than simply David. The thought of divorce, once a terrifying abstract, began to solidify. It wasn't just about ending the legal ties. It was about reclaiming my identity, about rebuilding my life from the ground up. It felt like standing at the edge of a vast, empty landscape, daunting but full of potential. The resolution was clear. This marriage was irrevocably broken. There was no going back, no fixing it. My acceptance of this truth, however painful, was the first step towards true healing. I knew it would be a long, arduous journey, but for the first time in months, I felt capable of taking it. The acceptance that the marriage was irrevocably broken brought a strange, almost clinical calm. The initial tempest of emotions, the shock, the anger, the profound sadness, began to recede, leaving behind a vast, quiet emptiness. It was a space where I could finally begin to think clearly, without the fog of constant emotional turmoil. My focus shifted from dwelling on her betrayal to figuring out my own path forward. The practicalities of divorce loomed large, a mountain I knew I had to climb. I started researching lawyers, looking into the legal steps, trying to understand the process. Each document, each consultation, felt like another nail in the coffin of our shared life, but it was a necessary step towards building a new one. I also began to reconnect with parts of myself that had been neglected. I picked up my old guitar, which had gathered dust for years. The familiar fretboard and the comforting strum of chords offered a small, quiet solace. I started running again, pushing my body to its limits, finding a release for the pent-up frustration and grief. Physical exhaustion often brought a temporary mental peace, a much-needed respite from the endless loop of thoughts. One evening, Amelia called. Her voice was surprisingly soft, almost hesitant. "David," she began, I think we need to talk. Properly. Not like before." My heart quickened, a flicker of something, maybe hope, maybe just residual anxiety. I braced myself. "What about Amelia?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral, guarded. I had learned to be wary of her sudden shifts. "About us. About what happened. I've been doing a lot of thinking," she said. There was a pause. I held my breath. I realized I was wrong. About how I reacted. About everything. "I'm so sorry, David. I really am. I want to make this right. I want to fight for us." For a moment, a wave of longing washed over me. The old David, the one who desperately wanted to believe in her, wanted to cling to those words. But the new David, the one who had spent weeks piecing together the shattered fragments of his reality, saw through it. There was no mention of her actions, only her reaction. No admission of the core deceit, just a belated apology for how she handled the aftermath. And the timing felt calculated. Perhaps realizing the practical implications of my departure were becoming very real. "Amelia," I said, my voice steady. "I appreciate you saying that. But how you reacted isn't the problem. The problem was what you did. And the months of lying before that. The contempt. The blame. I can't undo that." Her tone hardened instantly, the mask slipping again. So you're just going to give up then? Just like that? After everything? What about our house? Our savings? You're just going to walk away from everything? Her voice was laced with a familiar indignation, laced with accusations that I was being irresponsible. No, Amelia, I'm not giving up. I corrected her gently but firmly. I'm choosing a different path, and we can discuss the house and savings with our lawyers. I think that's the best way forward now. She exploded. Lawyers? You're talking about lawyers? You pathetic excuse for a man. You think you can just abandon me and take everything? You think I'm just going to roll over? You have another thing coming, David. You will regret this. I will make sure you regret this. The tirade went on, venomous and vicious, until I simply hung up the phone, my hand trembling slightly. The phone call, though painful, was another crucial step. It confirmed that there was no genuine change, no true understanding on her part, only self-interest and a deep-seated need to control. And it reinforced my decision. The resolution wasn't just separation, it was a full, clean break. The path forward was divorce. There was no alternative. The phone call was a chilling reminder of the woman Amelia had become, or perhaps, always was beneath the veneer. Her rapid shift from feigned contrition to outright aggression confirmed every painful conclusion I'd drawn. There was no remorse, no recognition of her own culpability, only a furious self-preservation instinct now that the financial implications of my departure were becoming real. I leaned back against the wall after hanging up, taking a shaky breath. The trembling in my hand eventually subsided, replaced by a quiet, determined resolve. The conversation had, paradoxically, strengthened my resolve. It wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was a matter of self-preservation, of protecting my mental and emotional well-being from someone who was clearly willing to inflict maximum damage. The legal process began, a slow, methodical dismemberment of our shared life. Each form, each meeting with my lawyer, was emotionally draining. I had to recount the story over and over again, each repetition stripping away another layer of the raw wound, exposing it to the harsh light of reality. My lawyer, a kind but no-nonsense woman named Ms. Chun, listened patiently, offering practical advice and a much-needed sense of objective reality. She confirmed that Amelia's behavior, the gaslighting, the aggressive denial, the subsequent blaming, was a classic pattern of a narcissist caught in a lie. Hearing it articulated like that, by a professional, provided a strange validation. It wasn't just me, it was her. Amelia fought dirty, just as she promised. She dragged out the process, contested everything, and tried to paint me as the villain, the lazy, unsupportive husband who abandoned her for no reason. She claimed I was mentally unstable, that I fabricated the J evidence. She even tried to freeze our joint accounts, forcing my lawyer to intervene. It was an ugly, drawn-out battle, but through it all, I held on to Ms. Chin's words. Her actions are not a reflection of your worth, David. They are a reflection of her own character. The financial negotiations were particularly brutal. She demanded an exorbitant settlement, claiming I owed her for sacrificing her prime years for me, despite having a thriving career that she'd constantly boasted about. I had to disclose every detail of my finances, something that felt incredibly invasive, only for her to dispute them endlessly. My lawyer advised patience and sticking to the facts, and eventually, after months of back and forth, we reached a reasonable settlement. It wasn't everything I thought I deserved, but it was enough to move forward, and more importantly, it was a clean break. The cost, both emotional and financial, was immense, but the price of staying married to her would have been far greater. During this period, I found immense solace in unexpected places. My sister Sarah continued to be my rock, offering an open door and an open ear. Friends, once shared, began to gravitate towards me as the truth, or at least a less biased version of it, slowly began to emerge. Some were shocked. Others admitted they'd noticed Amelia's increasing coldness, but hadn't known how to address it. Their support, their belief in me, was crucial. One day, I found myself sitting alone in Sarah's apartment, staring at the finalized divorce papers. The signature on the last page was Amelia's, bold and decisive. It was over. Completely. A profound quiet settled over me. It wasn't sadness or anger or even relief. Not really. It was just emptiness. The kind of emptiness that comes after a long, exhausting battle, where you're too weary to feel anything else. But in that emptiness, there was also a nascent sense of possibility. The old life was gone, undeniably. The new one was still unwritten, but it was mine to write. The resolution was complete: divorce. The path forward was uncertain, but finally, it was my own. The quiet emptiness that followed the finalization of the divorce slowly, almost imperceptibly, began to fill. It wasn't with joy or exuberance, not yet, but with a burgeoning sense of peace and a renewed connection to myself. The constant emotional drain, the ever-present anxiety of being married to Amelia, had finally lifted. It was like shedding a heavy, suffocating cloak I hadn't realized I'd been wearing for years. I moved out of Sarah's place, finding a small apartment of my own. It was a fresh start, a blank canvas. There were no shared memories clinging to the walls, no echoes of old arguments. Just silence and space for me to redefine myself. I started decorating it simply, deliberately choosing items that reflected my taste, not ours. It was a small but significant act of reclaiming my identity. The grief for the life I had envisioned with Amelia persisted, a dull ache that surfaced occasionally. But it was no longer consuming. It morphed into something more manageable, a part of my story rather than the entirety of it. I started seeing a therapist, which was incredibly helpful. She helped me unpack the years of gaslighting, to understand the dynamics of the relationship, and to rebuild my self-esteem, which had been chipped away by Amelia's constant criticisms and accusations. She confirmed that my feelings were valid, that my reactions were normal, and that I was not, in fact, dull or insecure for wanting honesty and respect. I immersed myself in my hobbies. I joined a hiking group, rediscovered my love for photography, and even started taking a cooking class, something Amelia had always scoffed at, claiming I was too domestic. Each new activity, each new connection, was a step towards building a life that was authentically mine. I learned to enjoy my own company, to appreciate the simple pleasures of a quiet evening, a good book, or a challenging trail. One unexpected development was reconnecting with old friends who I'd somewhat drifted from during my marriage. They were surprised but understanding, and their genuine warmth and easy camaraderie were a balm to my soul. I learned to trust again, slowly, starting with these old connections. I also made new friends through my hobbies, people who saw me, David, for who I was, not as an extension of a problematic marriage. I also did some deep introspection about what I wanted in a future relationship. Honesty, respect, and open communication were now non-negotiables. I realized I had overlooked warning signs, rationalized bad behavior, and minimized my own feelings for the sake of maintaining peace. I vowed to never do that again. My therapist helped me understand that while I couldn't control Amelia's choices, I could control my own boundaries and reactions. The most profound realization was that I was stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. I had faced immense betrayal, navigated a brutal divorce, and rebuilt my life from scratch. And I had done it with integrity, without resorting to Amelia's tactics. This strength, this resilience, was a quiet triumph. The resolution was complete, not just legally, but emotionally. I was moving on, a little scarred, but fundamentally changed for the better. This was my new beginning. As the months turned into a year, the scars remained, but they had faded from raw, angry wounds to more subtle, silvery lines, a testament to battles fought and survived. The initial raw grief and anger had transformed into a quiet understanding, a painful acceptance of the past. I no longer dwelled on what-ifs or replayed scenarios in my head, dissecting Amelia's every word and action. The emotional weight of her presence, even in absence, had finally lifted. My new apartment truly became a home, a sanctuary of my own making. It was filled with books, plants, and the quiet hum of my own chosen routines. I continued with therapy, finding that the ongoing support helped me navigate the lingering complexities of healing and growth. We focused on building robust boundaries, understanding healthy relationship dynamics, and most importantly, recognizing my own worth. One day, I unexpectedly ran into Amelia at a grocery store. It was jarring. She looked different. Her usual confident stride seemed a little less pronounced, and her eyes, when they met mine across the frozen food aisle, held a fleeting expression I couldn't quite decipher. A mix of surprise, perhaps regret, or maybe just awkwardness. My heart did a quick, involuntary lurch, a ghost of old emotions, but it quickly settled. She hesitated, then approached. "David," she said, her voice softer than I'd heard it in years, almost gentle. "How have you been?" I met her gaze, no longer flinching. "I've been well, Amelia. And you?" My tone was polite, distant, utterly devoid of the warmth or anger that had once defined our interactions. She shifted, glancing around uncomfortably. It's been okay. Work's busy." She paused, then, with a surprising quietness, added, I just wanted to say, I really am sorry. For everything. For how I treated you. For the lies. I know I messed up badly." My first instinct was suspicion, a defense mechanism honed by years of her manipulation. But there was a genuine quality to her voice this time, a lack of the usual theatricality. My therapist had prepared me for this possibility. Sometimes, with time and personal growth, even those who resisted self-reflection might eventually come to a degree of understanding. I looked at her, truly looked at her, the woman who had caused me so much pain. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger or even sadness. I felt nothing, or rather, a detached sense of compassion for a person who had clearly struggled and perhaps was only now beginning to confront her own demons. "I appreciate you saying that, Amelia," I replied honestly. "It was a very painful time, but I've moved on. I'm doing well." I didn't offer forgiveness, not explicitly. Forgiveness was a journey I was still on, a deeply personal process for my own healing, not something to be granted on demand. But I acknowledged her apology. She nodded slowly, a faint, almost sad smile touching her lips. "I see that. You look good, David. Happy." "I am," I confirmed, a genuine smile finally reaching my eyes. "I truly am." We stood there for a moment, an awkward silence stretching between us, punctuated by the hum of the freezers. Then, with a slight nod, I offered a polite, "Well, I should go. Take care, Amelia." "You too, David," she replied, and I walked away, leaving her standing amidst the frozen peas. The encounter was a significant milestone. It proved to me that I was no longer emotionally bound to her. Her apology, however belated, didn't ignite old wounds. It simply confirmed my growth. I realized then that my healing wasn't about her feeling remorse or me receiving an apology, but about my ability to move past the pain and reclaim my own happiness. The emotional impact of the betrayal had been immense, but I had navigated it, learned from it, and emerged stronger. This truly felt like the closing chapter. That encounter in the grocery store was more pivotal than I initially realized. It wasn't just a brief, awkward run-in. It was a testament to the emotional distance I had traveled. Her apology, however genuine or not, held no power over me. It didn't open old wounds, nor did it spark a desire for reconciliation. It was just information, a data point in the vast landscape of my healing. And that, I realized, was profound. The emptiness I had felt post-divorce had slowly, deliberately, been filled with purpose. My work, which had once felt like a distraction, now became a source of genuine satisfaction. My photography hobby bloomed. I even started selling a few prints online, something I never imagined doing. The hiking group introduced me to incredible natural beauty and even more incredible people. I was building a community, a life, that was vibrant and authentic. I started dating again, cautiously at first. It was terrifying, putting myself out there after such a devastating betrayal. My therapist helped me understand that a new relationship wasn't about replacing what was lost, but about building something new and healthier. I learned to communicate my needs, to set clear boundaries, and to identify red flags that I might have ignored in the past. It was a learning curve, and there were some false starts, but each experience, good or bad, taught me something valuable about myself and what I truly desired in a partner. The biggest lesson was about self-worth. Amelia's constant criticisms had, over time, eroded my confidence. I had internalized her narrative that I was dull or needy. The journey through divorce and recovery had forced me to confront those insecurities head-on. I learned that my kindness wasn't weakness, it was a strength. My desire for connection wasn't neediness. It was a fundamental human desire that, when met with genuine reciprocity, formed the basis of deep and meaningful relationships. I discovered that true strength wasn't about being immune to pain, but about facing it, processing it, and choosing to rise again. It was about standing up for myself, even when it was terrifying, and realizing I deserved better. It was about understanding that Amelia's choices were a reflection of her own issues, not a commentary on my inadequacy. My relationship with my sister, Sarah, grew even stronger. She had been my steadfast anchor through the storm, and our bond was now unbreakable. She often reminded me of how far I had come, how much I had grown. Her unwavering support was a constant source of comfort and encouragement. Looking back, the entire experience was a crucible. It burned away the superficial layers, the illusions, and the complacent assumptions I had made about life and love. It was a brutal education, but it also forged a stronger, more resilient, and more self-aware version of me. My decision to leave, to choose myself, was the best decision I ever made. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most liberating. I am not the same man who found that crumpled receipt in the armchair. I am scarred, yes, but not broken. I am whole, in a way I never truly was before. I have learned to trust my instincts, to value my peace, and to know that I am worthy of a love that is honest, respectful, and reciprocal. That, above all else, is the resolution I achieved. The new life I'd built was no longer just about survival or healing. It was about thriving. The apartment felt like home, not just a temporary stop. My calendar was filled with activities I genuinely enjoyed: photography club meetings, long hikes with my new friends, cooking classes where I actually learned to make delicious food instead of just reheating leftovers. The laughter in my life was authentic, unburdened by underlying tension or the fear of a sudden, cruel remark. I'd also started seeing someone new. Her name is Clara. She's kind, funny, and incredibly understanding. We take things slow, built on a foundation of open communication and mutual respect. I was upfront with her about my past, about the pain and the lessons learned. She listened, not with judgment, but with empathy, and she never tried to rush me or compare herself to Amelia. It was a refreshing change, a stark contrast to the performative aspect of my previous relationship. With Clara, I felt seen, truly seen, for who I am now, not the dull husband, but David, the man who loves the outdoors, who has a quiet artistic side, and who values genuine connection above all else. The occasional thought of Amelia still surfaces, but it's like recalling a character from a distant book rather than a personal memory. There's no bitterness, just a detached understanding of how profoundly different our paths became. I no longer question my decisions, no longer second-guess whether I should have tried harder. The clarity is absolute. I chose myself, and it was the right choice. What I learned from this whole excruciating experience is multifaceted. First, trust your gut. Those little red flags, the nagging feelings of unease, they're almost always there for a reason. Don't rationalize away behavior that makes you feel bad or insecure. Your intuition is a powerful protector. Second, communication is a two-way street. I spent years trying to communicate, trying to fix things, but Amelia was never truly engaged. You can't build a healthy relationship alone. If someone consistently dismisses your feelings, gaslights you, or refuses to take responsibility, it's not a failure on your part for not communicating effectively enough. It's a fundamental breakdown in the relationship. Third, your self-worth is paramount. Don't let anyone, especially a partner, chip away at who you are. The constant criticism, the labeling of me as dull or insecure by Amelia, was a form of control, a way to keep me off balance. I learned that my value isn't derived from someone else's approval, and true love doesn't involve tearing you down. Fourth, seek support. I couldn't have navigated this alone. My sister, my therapist, new friends, they were all crucial in helping me heal. Leaning on others isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength and self-awareness. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. I once believed that staying in a broken marriage, trying to fix it endlessly, was the noble thing to do. But true nobility lies in recognizing when a situation is toxic, when you are being harmed, and having the courage to walk away. It's about prioritizing your own well-being, your peace of mind, and your right to a life filled with genuine love and respect. I'm not going to lie, the journey was brutal. It stripped me bare and forced me to rebuild. But what emerged from the ashes was a stronger, more resilient, and genuinely happier David. If you're out there reading this, in a similar situation, my advice is this. Listen to that quiet voice telling you something is wrong. Don't let someone else define your worth. And have the courage to choose your own peace, even if it means tearing down everything you thought you knew. It's terrifying, but it's worth it. Every single painful step.